Okay, still chapter 22, and now we are going to go over respiratory physiology. So we're going to start off with the mechanics of breathing. Ventilation consists of two phases: inspiration, expiration. Inspiration means gas is flowing into the lungs. Expiration means gases are exiting the lungs. This is a mechanical process that depends upon volume changes in the thoracic cavity. And now what we're about to learn is that volume changes lead to pressure changes. And then pressure changes are going to lead to the flow of gas to equalize pressure. And this is where we introduce Boyle's law. And Boyle's law is a relationship between pressure and volume of a gas. So gases always fill the container that they're in. If you have a Tupperware container in your, let's say, cabinet, there's a certain amount of gas in that particular container. You can't bang it on the counter really, really hard and get it to all go into the corner. Okay, gases are going to fill that whole container. Now you can get the gas to move if you bang it on the counter, but the air particles, the gas particles will move, but you're not going to get them to all completely just compress and stay right there in the corner of that container. Now, why this is important: if the amount of gas is the same and the container size is reduced, the pressure will increase. And so if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever done this, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, ever taken a bottle that's got a cap, a screw cap. And let's say the bottle is empty and you put the screw cap on. You squeeze the bottle, and when you squeeze the bottle, you're reducing the amount of volume in the bottle. When you reduce the amount of volume in the bottle, it's going to increase the pressure. Okay, and you can tell that because the more you squeeze, the harder it gets to actually squeeze in and reduce the volume of that container anymore. So what this means is pressure varies inversely with volume. Pressure goes up, or I should say it the other way around. Volume goes up, pressure goes down. Volume goes down, pressure goes up. Whatever volume does, pressure is going to do the opposite. Okay? Mathematically, this is represented as P1 times V1 equals P2 times V2. Do not worry about memorizing that equation. You will not have to work out any problems. I do want you to understand Boyle's law, though. Inspiration, and I'm about to explain here in a second why we had to talk about Boyle's law. But first, we're going to go over this part. So inspiration is an active process involving inspiratory muscles, which are going to be your diaphragm and your external intercostals. The diaphragm, when it contracts, moves inferiorly and flattens out, and the result is an increase in thoracic volume. The external intercostal muscles, when they contract, the rib cage is lifted up and out, and it's going to result in an increase in thoracic volume. As the thoracic cavity volume increases, the lungs are stretched as they are pulled out with the thoracic cage. What this means now is that as thoracic cavity volume goes up, lung volume is also going up. And what did we just say about volume? What's going to happen to the pressure? So hopefully you said the pressure is going to go down. So volume goes up, which means pressure goes down. So this is going to cause intrapulmonary pressure to drop. Because of the difference between atmospheric and intrapulmonary pressure, air flows into the lungs down its pressure gradient. What this means is when you breathe in, you're not literally sucking in air. You're expanding your thoracic cavity, which expands your lungs, which causes a drop in pressure, which causes air to passively move into your lungs. If you do a forced or deep inspiration, you're going to activate accessory muscles like the scalenes, the sternocleidomastoid, and the pectoralis minor. The erector spinae muscles of the back can also help to straighten out the thoracic curvature. And they're going to act to further increase thoracic cage size, which is going to create a larger pressure gradient, so more air can be drawn in. So what we see here is the muscles contract. So the diaphragm descends, and then the external intercostals cause the rib cage to rise. This is going to cause an increase in thoracic cavity volume. This is going to cause the lungs to stretch and the intrapulmonary volume to increase. This is going to cause intrapulmonary pressure to go down. When intrapulmonary pressure goes down, I lost my cursor. How dare you go away? Where have you gone? Okay, I'm doing circles somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. Then air flows into the lungs down its pressure gradient until intrapulmonary pressure is equal to atmospheric pressure. Expiration is a quiet, passive process. The inspiratory muscles just relax, thoracic cavity volume decreases, lungs recoil. Now volume is going down, which is going to cause intrapulmonary pressure to go up. When intrapulmonary pressure goes up, air flows out of the lungs down its pressure gradient. Forced expiration is an active process. It's going to use the oblique and transverse abdominal muscles as well as the internal intercostals. So let's blow this up. So inspiratory muscles relax, thoracic cavity volume goes down, lungs recoil, intrapulmonary volume goes down. Remember, volume goes down, pressure goes up, right? Intrapulmonary pressure rises, and I lost my cursor at the same place. Goodness. Okay. And then air flows out of the lungs down its pressure gradient. There are other movements, there's non-respiratory air movements. So there's other processes that can move air in and out of the lungs just besides breathing. And examples are coughing, sneezing, crying, laughing, hiccups, yawns. All right, now we are going to talk about physical factors influencing pulmonary ventilation. We have 3 physical factors that influence the ease of air passage and the amount of energy required for ventilation. They are as follows: air resistance, alveolar surface tension, and lung compliance. Air resistance. So a major non-elastic source of resistance to gas flow is friction. And it occurs in airways. And there's a relationship between flow pressure and resistance, and it's depicted mathematically as follows. Cursor. Flow equals change in pressure over resistance. Do not have to memorize that equation. I just want you to know that gas flow changes inversely with resistance. That's the takeaway from that slide. Now, resistance in the respiratory tree is usually insignificant for 2 reasons. First, the diameters of the airways in the first part of the conducting zone are huge. Second, progressive branching of airways as they get smaller leads to an increase in total cross-sectional area. Any resistance that does occur usually occurs in medium-sized bronchi. Resistance does disappear at terminal bronchioles, where diffusion is what drives gas movement. The next thing was surface tension. And this is the attraction of liquid molecules to one another at a gas-liquid interface. And it tends to draw liquid molecules close together and reduce contact with dissimilar gas molecules. Basically, what this means is that when you have water molecules, they prefer to be hooked up with other water molecules instead of being hooked up with gas molecules. Surface tension is also going to resist any force that tends to increase the surface area of a liquid. So if it tends to go in and try to get that liquid to where there's more surface area to it, spread it out basically, surface tension is going to resist that. And then water has a very high surface tension, and it coats alveolar walls in a thin film, and this is going to cause the alveoli to shrink to their small size or collapse. And what we have something called surfactant, which is a detergent-like lipid and protein complex that helps reduce the surface tension of the alveolar fluid. It's produced by type 1 alveolar cells, and it prevents alveolar collapse. And then the third physical factor influencing pulmonary ventilation is lung compliance. And lung compliance is a measure of change in lung volume that occurs within a given change in transpulmonary pressure. In other words, how much stretch the lung has. It's usually pretty high because of the distendability of the lung tissue as well as surfactant, which is going to decrease alveolar surface tension. Higher lung compliance means it's easier to expand the lungs. Now, there are a number of things that can diminish compliance. Non-elastic scar tissue that's replaced lung tissue, a reduced production of surfactant, and decreased flexibility of the thoracic cage. All three can cause compliance to diminish. Here are your questions for this section. That is all I have for you.